Ahoy and Welp. Welcome to the newest New World meme that will probably replace congratulations for a while. Today we once again have some bad news and some at least potentially good news. So some interesting stuff happened yesterday and we have some other info that came out because the devs and the community team have been quite talkative lately. Let's begin with Welp. As you probably know, there was a war that was scheduled for the PTR and that war didn't actually happen. And while everyone was standing in front of the warboard and trying to figure out what's going on, Welp is what Enwin, who tried to coordinate the war, wrote in the global chat. What most people thought was the issue were the limitations for mercenaries in wars, because on the warboard there were only a couple of members for each team signed up, what was allowed within the mercenary restrictions. However, Enwin actually addressed this on the forums. I'm just gonna read it out here. Hi everyone, apologies that we haven't been able to get the war kicked off. There were some back-end issues, but that's part of the reason behind PTR, testing. For those that joined, you will still be rewarded your title at a later date. We will provide more information on timing when available. In response to that, many people told them that they should have known that the mercenary restrictions would have been an issue and they're lying about what exactly happened, and Enwin explained things in a little bit more detail. So the first version here was the war auto-finished unexpectedly without occurring. The new version is the war finished unexpectedly without occurring, and then explaining below that the war seems to have actually taken place, so probably cross out that without occurring as well for it to make sense. So the war finished very quickly while they were trying to manually resolve the issue, while they're trying to manually push through the merc restriction despite previous tests. While it provided us valuable data, as is the goal of the PTR, it obviously is unfortunate that we weren't able to quickly resolve this when everyone logged in to play. While a different issue than the last time we hosted a war in PTR, we respect this has now happened twice to players and it's not a great moment. We're going to take significant steps to avoid it in the future. And then the rest of the reply here is not really that important for us. Now I'm sure there will be plenty of people that will accuse AGS of lying here, but I know for a fact that many people told them very early to take care of the mercenary restrictions for this war. Somebody even claimed that one of the devs had responded to them directly saying that that is on their radar. I believe that that is the case. I believe that they were aware of this functionality and that they had some system to override that, but what appears to be the problem is that the system just didn't work in that moment, which is just something that can happen in a test environment. So I don't really think this is a case of malice or massive incompetence, but simple technical issues that you have in test environments. As Enwin said, this is a PTR after all, and I don't think it is a massive problem. It is unfortunate for the people that were logging in for it, because there were apparently around 400 people that wanted to get into wars, which is more than they expected, I guess. But at the same time, they're still all getting the title, and the war itself probably wouldn't have been particularly balanced or exciting. What I am hoping is that they commit to the meme and do what has also been suggested on the Reddit, which is making the title for the event Welp. I know I often speak critically of things regarding New World because I really want to see a lot of things improved, and especially when it comes to things that deeply affect the game and the mechanics, that is something where I feel like it's worth investing a lot of energy into, but I don't think it's worth spending that same energy on a one-time testing event that would have been a meme war anyways that didn't happen because of technical issues. Also, we get some other interesting information from this. Somebody suggested intentionally stat padding to show how stupid scores are, and honestly, that's probably what I would have done myself if I would have been up at the time the war happened. And Enwin specifically asked people not to do that, saying, while this is obviously the PTR and meant for testing, we are highly aware of this issue, so please refrain from ruining the fun and stat padding in that manner. In response, multiple people then said, well, that's basically what's going to happen once these changes hit live, once the leaderboards hit live, because then people are going to do the same thing, but in an actual game environment in order to get top score. Enwin responded, I know trust the process isn't what you want to hear, but I truly think that's the best thing to say at this time. To me, between these two replies, this definitely indicates that they are aware of the stat padding issue and of the score issue in general. And my big hope is that what Enwin is saying, especially in the second reply, is that we'll not be seeing the current version of leaderboards making it to live like this. I'm hoping that it doesn't just mean that they're going to do some stat padding prevention where you can get a maximum of points per match or something. That would be a terrible outcome out of this. But rather that they are not actually going to use score but going to use something else instead. Of course, there is no guarantee here, and I would have much preferred a more detailed explanation as to why people shouldn't stat pad or why we don't have to worry about the whole score system and whatnot and stat padding and what comes with it. But at least we have some sort of hint that maybe they are not quite done with the leaderboards yet and are not going to drop them on live just the way they are. The question is if they're even going to go through with the early-ish release that they had planned, considering the war didn't happen now or didn't happen properly. So I don't know what's going on in that regard, but it's going to be interesting to see what end result we are actually getting here. It is technically possible that they even already removed the PvP leaderboard aspects and were just testing the war to see how they can handle them or use them later on down the road. But I don't want to inhale too much copium. There is also another interesting response we got today from one of the devs. Some of you may recognize the author of the original post, which is Drexen. Drexen is part of Benedict G's group, who are frequently speedrunning mutations and in many ways defining the current speedrunning meta. And Drexen had some interesting question regarding expedition speedrunning strategies and what is actually considered fair and legal, essentially. The mechanics that he specifically pointed out are unstuck mechanics, like for example in Lazarus, where you can unstuck from Scylla and skip certain mobs from spawning. He asked about body blocking bosses, which can sometimes prevent them from entering certain phases. He asked about movement abilities that can sometimes allow you to take unintended shortcuts. He asked about healing reduction on certain bosses that makes them spawn with less health and sometimes skip certain phases. And he also asked about going into unreachable areas that allow you to reset mobs. HZ Nibs, one of the New World devs, had a very detailed reply. Hi Drexen, thanks for the post. To directly answer the question, we have reviewed the behaviors listed and we will be taking action to clean up and fix most issues over time. None of the listed behaviors rise to the level where we would consider them exploits, unfair or bannable behavior. With the release of leaderboards, we have had discussions internally about the behaviors listed and decided to continue forward with the release as planned, deciding that none of the issues presented should stop either the enjoyment of our players for timed expedition runs or leaderboard rewards. Leaderboards are refreshed weekly. As changes are rolled out, teams will have an opportunity to evolve new strategies. To our community of speedrunners, we want to say we value the time and effort put into our game. We appreciate the question about what rises to a level of bannable behavior, since it is ultimately a judgment call that needs to be determined. In the extreme, if an exploit was found that allowed players to gather the rewards from an expedition in almost no time, it would break the economy and we would need to take the expedition offline. What would be questionable behavior is continuing to exploit something this extreme and not report it. We expect our speedrunning community to push the boundaries of what is possible and to utilize the tactics available in-game where they exist. We ask primarily for transparency so that we can help manage any bugs that do rise to the level where we need to take larger action like hotfixes or in the extreme red button removal of an expedition. Thank you very much for the questions and the specifics. I think that is a very clear and also great answer. Speedrunning has always tried to push boundaries and at least minor exploits are pretty much always a part of that as well. The difference between speedrunning Super Mario 64 and speedrunning New World is that if there is a technique in New World that is too effective and gives a team too much of an advantage, then this can be fixed by the devs because they're still actively patching the game. So if a particular skip bothers you too much and you expect it to be fixed, then you can just wait a little bit until the fix is out and then try to get the leaderboard for that particular mutation. I'm curious what the next days bring us in terms of news about leaderboards, but I will be talking about an alternative loadout that you can do that might get better next patch. So if you want to hear about that, consider subscribing and clicking the bell. That video will probably be coming out tomorrow. Thanks to my patrons for supporting this video, and thank you for watching. SLOTH out.